What if the gods of ancient Mesopotamia weren't gods at all? What if they were something else, something far more advanced and far more mysterious? Beneath the windswept sands of what is now modern-day Iraq, a civilization once flourished that would challenge everything we think we know about the dawn of history. Long before the first stones of Egypt's pyramids were laid, before Greece birthed philosophy, before Rome envisioned an empire, there was Sumer, an enigmatic society that didn't evolve gradually like most others, but instead appeared suddenly, almost inexplicably, a people whose inventions were so sophisticated, so foundational to our modern world, that scholars still debate how they achieved them. They gave us writing, law, complex astronomy, metallurgy, and urban planning, all during a time when most human societies still struggled with rudimentary tools and nomadic survival. These weren't simple villages. These were cities: Uruk, Eridu, Lagash, bustling centers of trade, spirituality, and knowledge. But the Sumerians didn't credit themselves for this brilliance. That's what makes them so different. They claimed their knowledge, their very civilization, was gifted to them. By whom? By powerful beings who descended from the sky, beings they called the Anunnaki. According to Sumerian myth, the Anunnaki came from the heavens, arriving not just as observers but as active participants in shaping civilization. They were described as towering figures of immense power, beings of advanced knowledge who brought the gifts of writing, agriculture, mathematics, and governance. In Sumerian cosmology, the Anunnaki weren't abstract deities. They were tangible presences with names, functions, and stories, detailed in clay tablets that have survived over 5,000 years. And then, in the 1970s, came a theory that would ignite both fascination and controversy. Zecharia Sitchin, a linguist and historian trained in ancient languages, proposed that these so-called gods were not divine beings in the mythical sense, but extraterrestrial visitors from a distant planet, Nibiru. According to Sitchin's interpretations of Sumerian cuneiform, the Anunnaki arrived on Earth not as deities to be worshipped but as explorers, colonizers, even scientists. Their mission? To mine precious resources, primarily gold, for use on their home planet. And in the process, they allegedly performed genetic experiments blending their own DNA with that of primitive hominids, creating a new being, humanity. To academic circles, these claims were absurd, bordering on pseudoscience. Linguists criticized Sitchin's translations, accusing him of twisting meanings, ignoring context, and cherry-picking data to support an elaborate fiction. Sumerian language is complex, they argued, and Sitchin's interpretations lacked scholarly rigor. Yet, despite the harsh criticism, his books sold millions of copies and found audiences in dozens of languages. Why? Because at their core, they touched on something primal, our yearning to understand where we came from and whether we were truly alone. But this fascination didn't arise in a vacuum. Even within mainstream archaeology, there are gaps and mysteries that resist easy explanation. How did the Sumerians develop such a complete system of knowledge, seemingly out of nowhere? Their emergence wasn't gradual. There's no discernible evolutionary track leading from primitive tribal culture to advanced urban society. One moment, simple agrarian life. The next, monumental architecture, lunar calendars, complex theological systems, and written laws. And then there's the question of influence. In other historical contexts, sudden cultural leaps often follow external contact. Consider Europe during the Crusades. Medieval society advanced rapidly after interacting with Islamic scholars who preserved and expanded on Greek science, medicine, and philosophy. The Renaissance wouldn't have occurred without this infusion of knowledge. Could the same have occurred in ancient Mesopotamia, but on a much more dramatic scale? Could an advanced group, possibly not from this earth, have introduced a foundation of knowledge that jump-started civilization? Historical analogies abound. When Hernán Cortés arrived in the Americas, many Aztecs believed he was the returning god Quetzalcoatl. The reason wasn't foolishness or naivety, it was a lack of context. Steel armor, muskets, and sailing ships were so foreign to the Aztecs' frame of reference that they had no other vocabulary for them. So what would a Sumerian herder make of a being emerging from a shining, fire-spewing craft in the sky? With no modern scientific framework, he might describe it as a divine chariot, or a god descending from the heavens. The event would be etched into myth, retold over generations, shifting form, but preserving its essence. But this lens invites us to re-examine artifacts with fresh eyes. One of the most intriguing examples is the VA 243 cylinder seal, a small artifact housed in the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin. The seal shows a figure pointing at a central star surrounded by what appear to be orbiting celestial bodies, 12 in fact. Many have interpreted this as a depiction of our solar system. If accurate, it would suggest that the Sumerians had a heliocentric understanding of planetary orbits thousands of years before Copernicus. Mainstream archaeologists assert that the seal is symbolic, but the precision is uncanny. Could this be evidence of ancient astronomical knowledge inherited from a now-forgotten source? Even more provocative is the concept of Nibiru, the mysterious planet Sitchin believed to be the Anunnaki's homeworld. While astronomers long scoffed at the notion, in recent years many have acknowledged unexplained gravitational anomalies at the edge of our solar system. These anomalies suggest the presence of a large, unseen object, nicknamed Planet 9. It hasn't been directly observed yet, but its influence is mathematically detectable. Is this Nibiru under a different name, a mere coincidence, or a buried truth re-emerging through science? And what of the Sumerian number system? While most cultures adopted base 10 systems, the Sumerians used base 60, a mathematical framework that's incredibly effective for measuring angles, time, and celestial movements. Even today we divide hours into 60 minutes, circles into 360 degrees. Why would a primitive society devise such an elegant and efficient system so tailored to astronomy? Sumerian texts say they didn't invent it. It was given to them, just like writing, just like kingship, just like law. Their star charts provide yet another puzzle. Many contain data on lunar cycles, planetary conjunctions, and eclipses, all calculated with startling accuracy. These weren't casual observations. They required long-term tracking, sophisticated geometry, and predictive modeling. How could a society that had just emerged from the Neolithic accomplish this without an advanced foundation of knowledge? But the mystery doesn't stop in Mesopotamia. Cultures across the globe echo similar themes: divine beings descending from the sky, sharing wisdom, reshaping civilization. In Africa, the Dogon people possess ancient knowledge about the Sirius star system, including details invisible to the naked eye, information science only confirmed with modern telescopes. In Mesoamerica, gods like Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl are described as bearded sky beings who brought order and knowledge. In Egypt, the god Thoth introduced writing and measurement, different names, different cultures, but remarkably consistent narratives. And then we have Göbekli Tepe. Discovered in the Turkish countryside, this site predates Sumer by over 6,000 years. Built at the end of the last ice age, it features enormous stone pillars arranged with astronomical precision. Yet according to everything we thought we knew, it just shouldn't exist. Hunter-gatherers weren't supposed to have the organizational capacity or technical skill to create such a monument. Who built it? And, why? It was intentionally buried, as if to preserve it for a future generation. Could it be a remnant of a lost civilization? A message from a time even more ancient than Sumer? Every few years we stumble upon relics that don't fit the standard narrative. Batteries from Baghdad, maps that show ice-free Antarctica, tools embedded in million-year-old strata. These discoveries are often dismissed, sidelined, or explained away. But what if these are the pieces of a forgotten puzzle? What if history is not a straight line, but a series of rises and resets? Cataclysms may have wiped the slate clean, only for remnants of advanced knowledge to survive in isolated pockets. Passed down through myth, encoded in sacred texts, embedded in architecture. Maybe we've been looking at history backwards, treating myth as fiction, when it may be distorted memory. And if so, we're not just rewriting history, we're rediscovering it.